Am I live? I'm live. What's good? What is good? Cyrus here, stuck in the middle, representing with the Occupy Mars sweater. I don't wear this sweater a lot. I want this sweater to last forever. Occupy Mars, if you don't know, SpaceX, Elon Musk. And for me, it represents that, but it also represents reaching for the best you can be, reaching for the stars like in your everyday life. So I'm kind of pumped. When I wear this sweater, I'm kind of pumped up. What's up, Saren and Darren? If I'm pronouncing your name right, Saren and Darren Monair. Is that French? I'm not good with. If you know one thing about me, you hear me butchering everybody's name. I am not. That's one of the things that I admire from TV personalities. They know how to pronounce names and words really, really well. Always great to see you. Thank you. What is good? I'm a boomer now, so I'm an honorary boomer. I created a Discord channel. I actually am in a couple Discord channels. I just don't use it that much. But I got a good suggestion from Casual Goats. He was like, why not set up a Discord so we can chat at any moment? So I'm setting that up, and I haven't done anything with it yet, so we can just go into it. We're getting into the intro here. Thank you, G Listed. What is up? I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped for the show. I got going to talk about Tucker Carlson and how he's owning right now. White pill moment. I don't like to say that we are winning people. When I say we, I mean pretty much common people. I don't really like when people say we are winning because I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate yet, but there are many of moments to be white pilled about, to be happy about. And Tucker is one of them. I hate bringing this up. Like, I don't agree with Tucker all the time, but it almost feels like we're in a place like if you say, you support Donald Trump or you support Tucker or you support Joe Rogan, it's almost like, or whoever, it's almost like you have to always couch it with, I don't always agree. And maybe it's just me in my head feeling that way, but it almost feels like if I say I like Tucker Carlson, it's almost like some people are going to assume you agree with everything he's ever said in his life. Who agrees with their girlfriend, wife, family members? Who agrees with anybody on everything? But Tucker is going to come up. I'm going to talk about The Rock briefly, and I'm going to use Rock as an example of where to be careful. I think when we look at politicians, as we get into the live, I'm actually going to start with just family, getting that kind of stuff off my chest. I had to actually change. I'm sorry. I had to change the time of the live from 4:15 to 4:30. So what happens is after I'm done with work, kids are home. My wife and I kind of hand them off. I got two kids, both under 5 years old, 1 5, 1 2.5. And we kind of go back. We kind of trade off. I mean, it's, I don't know if it's just me. Maybe I have kids, I've had my kids a little bit older than some, but man, it's draining mentally they got questions and they always want to, I hope they don't end up too violent. They always want to hit daddy on the head, and I got to get a handle on that. I mean, they're being playful. They're not hurting or anything, but so they're just a handful. So my wife and I will do family events mostly on the weekends, but we trade off like, okay, you get a break. So when you come into it, you're fresh. And so when they ask you that 100th question, you're not like, So kid stuff. So I had to wait a little bit to hand off the kids to my wife. But my son asked me the other day, I think it was an amazing question. He asked me, Daddy, what keeps the sun up? Like, what keeps the sun, basically where it is? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm into space. I follow it a little bit. And I actually looked it up. Fun fact, before we get into the stories here, the sun orbits around the center of the Milky Way. Am I the only one who didn't know that? I tweeted that the other day, but I'm like, wow, I never knew that, son. Great question. But the cool thing is, he's asking about God now. My 5-year-old, 2.5-year-old, he didn't know anything about God. No, he doesn't have the concept. We read some books and stuff. They have kids' books telling the Bible stories and stuff. I'm not a huge church person, but I am a huge person in believing in a higher power. But he's asking all these questions now, like, did God do that? The other day, he's like, how did God create the universe? I'm like, good question, son. So what's up, everybody? Appreciate you stopping by. I'm going to just talk about the vibe a little bit. This was from yesterday. Got a lot of snow in my area. Snow day. So 2 kids at home, under 5, were working at home. My wife and I both work at home. So we're on these virtual calls all day. And some of them you've got to be in, you can't have kids draped all over you. So it's like, here, play with this toy. Okay, let's do this activity, color with this, buy your time for 30 minutes to an hour. Anybody else living that, I guess you can call it the after times life. No sanity, no organization, pure chaos. House looks like that. Just craziness. Oh boy. Even so, somebody replied and said, who's the parent? Tough love is making them clean up too. I want to give you a shout out, Kate. You better believe we made them pick up those toys, because I wasn't picking them up. I know that for sure. I tell my wife, if I have to be picking up these toys, they got too many toys. Now I'm grateful that they have forgotten about more toys than I ever grew up with. Grateful for that. But there are challenges. You got to appreciate, like when I grew up and I had one Transformer in the 80s, and my mom, I don't know how she got it, because back then everything was sold out, like Cabbage Patch Kids and all that. I wasn't into that, but everything that came out was sold out quickly. I had that one. It was Starscream. I had Starscream, and I never lost it. Never, got tired of it, because it was like my one Transformer. Now he's got like a million toys and dinosaurs and all that kind of stuff. So I wonder if that's where kids get this low attention deficiency. So yeah, that's kind of like what's going on. How's everybody feeling? I'm gonna talk about The Rock first. The Rock is gonna be a very simple, quick topic. Nothing too deep here, but I've been watching The Rock. I'm gonna get more in depth about talking about The Rock. I've been watching him. I've been watching him a lot. I've been watching him. Let me tell you, any wrestling fans here? I'm not a huge wrestling fan. My brothers, I was a wrestling fan from like the old school wrestling, like Razor Ramon and Mr. Perfect. Believe it or not, Mr. Perfect was one of my favorite. Jake the Snake. That's where I was a big fan. So I was a big wrestling fan. Then I fell off on it. I just didn't watch it much. But my brothers, a little bit younger, they still hung on to it. And then I remember they were like, this is way back in the day. I don't even know what year this is. Way back in the day, they're like, you might want to get back into wrestling. I'm like, what? I haven't watched wrestling in a while. Y'all can watch it. I haven't watched it in a minute. They're like, there's this guy. He's named The Rock. And he is the best of all time as far as a performer. He's hilarious. And The Rock was awesome. And that whole time The Rock was in the what was it? It was a WWE. I know it as the WWF, but whatever. While he was there, he was the man. He was not the champ. I don't think he ever got the belt, did he? Maybe for a hot second. He was always the people's champ. And I'm going to translate that to here. And I think right now I have to call him a phony. I think he's a fake. I think he's faking. So I don't know for sure, but Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was a part of a few celebrities, which it's still a risk. Joe Rogan is very anti-establishment right now. Not just him, but the establishment hates him. Yes, Toosie Two Shoes is going to go right where I'm going. But so that's, you see, so he's a Democratic establishment shill, period. I haven't seen him make a transformation. Maybe he's transformed, but I haven't seen it. Right now, he's supporting Joe Rogan. That raised my eyebrow. Does that? But here's my thing. People in the chat are saying, "Hey, Rock's the shill." Dusty Rhodes, old school wrestler. So people are in the chat saying the Rock's a shill. Okay, so how do you? If you're really a shill, you wouldn't support Joe Rogan, though, would you? So that's what caused me to say, what's happening here with The Rock? What's Dwayne Johnson doing? What's The Rock cooking? And I think he's a phony. That's where I'm going with this. I think he's a phony. And I don't trust. Let me say this more. I don't trust him. The Rock is going to have to explain to me what his path was. If he wants me to trust him, he's going to have to explain how he got to this point. And I haven't done all the reading. Maybe he has. I'm not sure. But let me go ahead and play a little clip here where The Rock's talking about stuff in the 2020 election.
Happy Sunday, everybody. We are approximately 5 weeks away from Election Day, arguably the most critical election our country has seen in decades. Now, that said, I'm going to be pushing this political conversation just a little bit more. Now, look, I've got friends in all parties, but the one thing that we can always agree on is the conversation and the dialogue and where that conversation lands.
This dude doesn't even look like a real human being. Before we listen to what he has to say, Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. I don't want to use that term. The dude's cut like that dude, it doesn't even look real.
Is always the most critical part. Now, this is something that I've certainly not done in the past, so I'm gonna go big. You guys know me. If I go big. So, guys, I had the opportunity to sit down with Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris to talk about a number of important issues that we're facing as a country. I thought it was a great and extremely productive conversation that we had. And as a registered independent for years now with centrist ideologies, I do feel that Vice President Biden and Senator Harris are the best choice to lead our country, and I am endorsing them to become president and vice president of our United States.
Okay, bro. So that's fine. I played Gali, who is very well respected in the Tesla community. I played him yesterday talking about how he voted for Biden. And he said in that video, just because I voted for you doesn't mean I'm not going to challenge you. So maybe I missed it. I haven't followed everything, but I'm going to need to hear that now. You went out, you endorsed Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They have turned out to be a mess, a disaster, the worst combination, the worst president, and the worst VP independently and as a combination we have ever seen in this country, potentially, I think, at least definitely of my lifetime. I need to hear from you now. Anyone, if you supported them and you're going to come out now and say, well, oh yeah, you got, Joe Rogan, I support his, right? Or however you say it, I need you to reconcile. You're going to have to reconcile a lot for me. You can't just do that. You can't just say, I supported them, but you don't come back and say, how do I show where I am at this moment? So, for example, I always talk about it. People on the channel always make fun of me about it, and you should. That I used to support AOC, and I still want to support I still want to explain my journey at some point. I'm not in the mood to do it now, It's really hard. I got to think about it. But I've switched and I've made my case for where I am now. Now, I actually have made my case about, I've gone after AOC a lot on the channel. So I guess that makes my case. But my point is, you've got to be able to show me how you got there. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, how did you get to the point? How did you get to the moment where you are now, where all of a sudden, now you are supporting Joe Rogan? And how does that reconcile? We heard Saki earlier today go after Joe Rogan. How do you reconcile that? That you can't have it both ways. I'm going to end with this. Barry Weiss is another example of this. She's obviously not running for president or anything like that. I've posted moments where I agree with Barry Weiss, and what I want from her is the same thing I want from The Rock. Before I can fully endorse you or rock with you or roll with you, I need to know. I tweeted earlier today, since Barry Weiss took the low dose red pill, she didn't take the whole thing, we agree on some things. And I support her, and I will support her on those things we agree. However, she hasn't reconciled and explained her path. How did she get to this point? She's still supporting the establishment Dems. Why? No one's going to trust her until she humbles herself. It's going to take some humility. Let me know what you think. Check out the comments before we get to the next topic. I'm going to go backwards on the comments. Yeah, Rogan, you could argue Rogan's on the left. He recently endorsed Michelle Obama, Joe Rogan. So I don't know who they're going after, a guy who just recently endorsed Michelle Obama. Flat out endorsed her. Said I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe he flat out just said I endorse her. Hey, if that's how you roll, that's how you roll. Let me go on. I'm going to get to Tucker. Tucker is, Tucker is an unusual person in our times right now because he's on mainstream media. Tucker Carlson is on mainstream media. But he does his channel, or I called it a channel. He does his show like he's an independent dude. Fox News doesn't even rock with everything he says. Tucker Carlson is a separate entity from Fox News. He's not Fox News. Look at this. Tucker Carlson is drawing more Democratic viewers than MSNBC or CNN in the 25 to 54 age range. Did anybody else expect that? I didn't expect that. But now that I see it, it makes sense. Carlson was top among Democrats in the demo across all of cable news. That month ranked third place among Dems in total viewership too. Of the top 4 programs among Democrats in total viewers, Fox News had 3, 5. The 5 is a show I used to watch. I don't watch it much anymore. Tucker Carlson Tonight and Hannity. I don't know why I'm not a big Hannity fan. I'm not a huge Hannity fan, but much respect, whatever. They got the top spots. The top spot in total viewers went to Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow and I do not agree politically. She's had blunders, but I have blunders. Everybody has blunders and mistakes. She's very bright. I don't enjoy her show because she's too smug for me, in my opinion. But I do respect her. She's very bright, very intelligent. I like the way she runs her show. If she weren't smug, I'd watch her show every day. If she wasn't dripping with, in my opinion, that's just your point of view. If she wasn't dripping with arrogance, I'd watch her show, and I'd watch it every day. I wouldn't have a problem with it. But she's very smart. So, but when you look at it, it puts things in a different light. Remember when we talked about the NSA spying on Tucker Carlson, which was denied? I did not believe the denial letter, or the denial letter was not exhaustive. Let's put it like that. So they know that this guy's been taking viewers, and he was really they they never denied that he was indirectly monitored. They denied that he was directly being spied upon. It was just indirectly. Sean Hannity is just a right wing Rachel Maddow. Yep, I well said. And then they tried to go after him, Tucker Carlson, about this, donating to Marjorie Taylor Greene's campaign $250. Here's where I'm at. Here's what I care about. Is the person I'm listening to, are they going to be influenced by the donation or whatever else they do with a campaign? So the question that I would have is, in my head, would Tucker Carlson refuse or avoid criticizing Marjorie Taylor Greene because of this action? Absolutely not, in my opinion. If it reached a certain level of standard, he might not criticize her at my level of standard, but I think if it reached, he's criticized Trump, he's criticized anyone. He is principled and he goes after ideas. So that donation, you guys, you tell me, does that donation bother you? Does it bother you? And these personalities, I don't know if Tucker even calls himself a journalist. These personalities have private lives, right? They can donate, they can vote. Does that bother you? And the test is, would it bother you if Brian Stelter donated $250 to Kamala Harris, or just hypothetically? For me, the donation wouldn't be what bothered me. It's just what Stelter does every day. The donation's irrelevant. I want to play a little bit I want to revisit this. What an amazing moment. It's a 7-minute video, so I'm going to probably start it in the middle or skip around. I'm not going to play a whole 7-minute video. But Tucker Carlson, he has a magical, I don't know if it's not gravitas. He has a way with words. Let me play this for you. This is you might have seen this already. One of my favorite speeches since Rush Limbaugh, probably circa 2009.
Got a ton of people who are totally cut off because they live in a hermetically sealed, airless world where they're really, really worried about getting super sick, which I'm sympathetic to that. But that doesn't mean that people who are 25 and at no risk at all should pay the cost for that. I get that you're concerned, and I respect that. And I have relatives in that position. I can't overstate how much I'm not mocking and how seriously I'm taking those fears, because I think they're grounded. I'm not making fun of anybody. We all have to decide, what we're afraid of and how we're going to respond to it. What I think is completely unacceptable is destroying the next generation of Americans.
I like how humble he is. That's a good, humble moment in his speech. Whoops.
How we're going to respond to it. What I think is completely unacceptable is destroying the next generation of Americans because you're afraid. I think it's cowardly. I think it's disgusting. I think it's one of the great crimes ever committed. I do think that. It's totally cowardly. I'm 52, so, I'm more than halfway there. And I'd rather leave tonight than see my kids destroyed. Any normal person would. Any normal person would. I hesitate for 1 second.
I'm trying to understand why this isn't even really a political speech, or it's not like a party speech. This speech has nothing to do with whether you're a Democrat or Republican. And Tucker's taking that lane, and that's why I'm ready to call him a populist. He comes from a populist angle.
Not 1 second. Well, I could live another 30 years and play more golf. Or my kids could thrive. You know, I'm going to just have to take the weekend to think about it. No normal person thinks that way. And if you're in charge of a country, you have to think of the country first. It's actually not about you, you narcissistic creep. It's not
Let's
about
go.
you.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
I'm so afraid. Okay, you're so afraid. Like, I don't judge you.
Then stay
we all have
home.
irrational fears. We all have actually some rational fears. There are things to be afraid of. That's all right.
Absolutely.
But you can't lead if you're afraid. That is totally disqualifying. Terrified people shouldn't be in charge of anything.
Rip them.
Terrified people says, who? So this is like the most obvious thing in world history. No country puts terrified people in charge. It's like there's no animal species that does that. Oh, the whimpering dog's going to lead the pack. That's a good idea. No! Whimpering dog gets to the back. He follows the big brave dog. Like, that's how life is. How far are you from nature that you think it's a good idea to put a terrified old guy in charge of Corona?
Yes, sir.
What?
I'm going to be your hype man. Let's go.
No, I mean it. So here's the upside. This can't continue. Nature writes the rules. We don't. And Joe Biden certainly doesn't. Nature writes the rules.
That's
Period.
God.
We're not in charge
That's
of those
God.
rules that are immutable.
Yep.
They apply to the Romans. They apply to us. These are the laws of nature. We are subject to them whether we want to be or not. We can't change them. We can't transition out of them. We can't identify as being exempt from them. Because they don't change. They don't care what we think. Nature, God, is outside of our control. We can only respond. That's it. And we can respond wisely or we can respond foolishly, but we can't pretend we're in charge of it. You spend the night in a snowstorm in your boxers, you're going to die. You can't identify as warm. It will kill you.
I love this speech so much. I'm just going to let it ride. I love hearing this.
No, it's true. So that's not like some crackpot right-wing theory I thought up this afternoon. Oh, I'm speaking a turning point. Better torque up the politics. That's like the truest thing there is. And if you forget that at scale, like as a country, you know, it just doesn't work. It will never work. I don't care what, you know, people with degrees on Twitter are telling you. That's just not real. And it will snap back because it has to. If it can't continue, it won't, and it won't. So all you need to do is get as far away from these people as you possibly can so you can stay sane. I mean it. I mean it. That makes a huge... I've done
Being
it. I'm not
dead.
going to get into my weird personal life, which is totally not weird. The one thing I'll say about it is, like, I opted out of that. I don't want to be around that stuff anymore.
Nope.
At my age, I'm just not going to be. I'm not going to be around that. I'm not going to be around it for one more minute of my life. And I have a flexible job, and so I'm not around it. I'm not around any crazy people. I'm around people who disagree with me. That's totally fine with me. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I don't mind being disagreed with. I'm not always right. I'm often...
Back in the day, Tucker used to do debates all the time. Why those days go away?
wrong. But I definitely don't want to be around crazy people who want to wreck stuff. Absolutely not.
No.
I want to be around happy people who want to build stuff.
Yep.
And there are only two
Yes,
kinds
sir.
of people.
Yes, sir.
You're either creating something beautiful or you're tearing it down. That's it. That's it. You're either creating something beautiful or you're tearing it down. And all the joy in life is in creating something beautiful, whether it's relationships or children or your work product. That's the joy right there, is in making stuff and hoping that it lasts. And if you're around people who are like taking joy and kicking it down or spray painting it, just move away. Like this is not a rational thing. This is a spiritual battle. You're not going to win them over through argument. You don't want physical conflict with them. That's horrible. Violence is horrible.
Yes.
I guess sometimes it's, unavoidable. But if
Yes.
you can avoid it, you should, because
Yes.
it's bad. You don't want to hurt people,
Smart. Yep.
Just get away. And now you can. You absolutely can. Not all of you can. Some of you are tethered to this or that obligation, or there's still
Respectful.
places without internet service, I guess. But I look at these cities and I'm like, why isn't everyone living on the shores of Lake Superior in like an abandoned Finnish settler village? What, taking saunas every day and like looking out on the steely gray water and feeling happy. And yet they're in some like super depressing parking spot driving 20 miles to, why would you do that? And getting yelled at and flashing signs on the highway telling you to wear a mask or get your injection or whatever? No thanks. I don't want to be around that at all. And you shouldn't either. And you should run away. You will feel much happier and you will see much more clearly. Some of you have to deal with it, but some of you don't, and you shouldn't. It's a continental country. The whole interior of the country has been abandoned. It's unpopulated. Take it back.
Truth.
It's your country. You can
Truth.
live there if you want. It's all right.
Truth.
And you should.
I'll be very honest with you. I've already no one tell my wife, this is our secret. Just in case, I've been like, here's my proposal for us to go somewhere out in a rural area where people, we've been in rural areas. If you're not familiar with rural areas, and sometimes people have this stigma about worrying about if you're black or this identity out there. The rural areas that I've been into, I've been in rural areas in Oklahoma, Minnesota, Ohio. The ones that I've been in, you got to be careful. Michigan, most of Michigan's a rural area. It's just Detroit, and everything else is kind of rural. What my experience has been, you treat people well, you say hello, you don't do shady stuff, they treat you the same way. They don't care the color of your skin. So don't be afraid of that. So if you are, I'm not sure if anybody is, but just my experience. That's not everywhere, obviously, but that's an option. And that was my number one proposal, is we can be on the internet and work almost anywhere. Let's go to somewhere where people respect each other. They don't bother you. We live in a way where we don't bother other people, and we're good.
And then I would recommend kind of waiting it out a little bit and build like a real community. I don't know, it's kind of nice to know the guy at the grocery store, or the ladies at the post office. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing, actually. It's a good thing. And the more of that you get in your life, the happier you'll be. And then you can wait for the dawn, which is coming.
What a speech. I'm going to end with this. Would you vote? Let's take Trump out, because Trump is the Don Dada. He's the dude. No one's stopping Trump. So I'm not even really talking about DeSantis anymore. Nobody's stopping Trump. It's just a matter of, will he choose Tulsi for his VP? That's what I want. Or Yang. Anybody know Trump? Holla at him. Tell him, if I'm going to be so pissed if something happened. I mean, we're way out in the future, but if Trump chose like Pompeo for his VP, I would be so pissed off. The Pence thing obviously didn't work out. You don't need an establishment to. But take Trump out of the equation. Would you consider Tucker Carlson for president? Let me know what you think. What is good? Somebody, okay, I want to get, since I just ended that segment there, I want to get to this this comment. Okay, to all hearing, let's talk about this before I get into the last topic. To all hearing news from fellow trucking friends, major events are going to happen in the USA within 15 days across the USA. My response was the big googly eyes. And let's rise up. I might not be able to be out there because the kid's wife might have to donate, talk about it, do what I can to support. But what they're doing out there in Ottawa, we're watching history. We are living through history, a historic event that your children's children are going to be reading about. Just a matter of who tells the story and how they present it. But they will be reading about it. That's for damn sure. They have my 100% support. When we talk about organized, nothing's perfect. They use GoFundMe. And boy, was that a mistake. So nothing's perfect. But when you talk about organized, peaceful protest, they thought it through. With all those trucks, you can't stop them. What are you going to do? How do you remove them? You can cut off their money like GoFundMe, but other than that, they're in a tough spot. You can't easily move them out of there. What a well thought out protest. Let me get to the last one. Last topic. I'm really heated about this one. Maybe I should have ended. Now I think about it, I should have ended on the Tucker because it's more of a positive ending, and I'm gonna have to be out right after this one. But you live, you learn. Did a video recently on Brian Flores. This is going to talk about the NFL, but I'm not talking sports. Trust me. This is something that is going to. I'm projecting, so I could be wrong. I think could engulf any and every industry, including our country. We need to watch the moves that these. I was going to say, we need to watch the moves that are being made. The NFL is showing us what is happening. NFL is a microcosm of the larger issue in America. So if you don't know, I did a video on Brian Flores and the Giants. Brian Flores is suing the NFL, alleging racism. The only problem is, at least for me, is that I haven't seen him allege any proof of what's in someone's head or heart, meaning a racist term or flat out saying I'm a racist or something to that effect. I don't have proof. So how is maybe you have a HR lawsuit, but what's race got to do with it? That's what I'm talking about. So Brian Flores, this is now with the Broncos, a different one. He's got all these allegations going out there. His lawsuit, he's saying that when he interviewed with the Broncos, this is crazy. He's saying when he interviewed with the Broncos, that John Elway was disheveled.
You state that in an interview that you had with him, that John Elway and another Broncos official showed up an hour late, looked disheveled. It was obvious to you they had been drinking heavily the night before the interview. You say it became clear they only were interviewing you to fulfill the provisions of the rooney rule. What specifically can you remember about that interview?
So I've had 9 interviews with NFL clubs. There's been 1 interview where anyone was late. It wasn't me that was late, it was the interviewers.
So the volume might be low, but he's saying I went to an interview and the interviewers were late. Okay, so what? I've even seen tactics where interviewers will be late on purpose to see if someone gets pissed off. How do they adjust to it? They were late. Man, get your ego in check, bruh. An interviewer, he's not the interviewee. He's the interviewer. Now, I'm saying, here's the thing. Here's the other thing about an interview. If you don't like that, you don't need to take the job. You are also interviewing them. So if they're a mess or they're late and you feel some kind of vibe or some kind of way, you can walk out of the interview, or after the interview, even if they offer you the job, you can say, no, thank you. So I don't even know why that came up. Irrelevant.
That was with the Broncos. I think there was a reason why they were late. I think they were, they'd been out the night before. I think that's the reason why.
What made you believe that? I don't mean to interrupt you, but what gave you the impression, if you will, that they had been out drinking the night before?
Well, I mean, when you sit at a table with 5 people who are interviewing you, you know you can tell who's asking questions.
Wait, he asked you, you made an allegation that they were out late the night before. And you're talking about asking questions? Where's the connection?
Who's into the interview and who's not necessarily in the right state, I would say, in that moment. But even then, obviously I put my best foot forward.
This is pure insanity. He just accused them of being out late the night before based on who was interacting during the interview or not. What the hell is that? Ooh, boy, this is a foresight of what's going to happen or what could happen.
And showed why I was a good candidate for that job. I'm always going to do that.
I respect that.
But I certainly did not feel like I was taken seriously. And I was just there as a rule.
That's in your head, bruh. You can't prove that. He said what he was feeling in his head. You can't prove that you were there only because you were black. That's in your head. It could be true. It could not be true. The justice system is going to have to make sure that that can't fly. That can't go on. He has no proof.
Ultimately was hired for that job and was subsequently fired a month ago. You are aware, of course, that the Broncos have released a statement emphatically denying the allegations, giving specifics about what time the interview began, what time it ended, where it took place. They say they have notes. What is your reaction to that?
I deal in truth. That's my reaction.
What?
I relate. I think they were. They'd been out the night before. I think that's the reason why. Showed why I was a good candidate for that job. I'm always going to do that. But I certainly did not feel like I was taken seriously. And I was just there as a rule.
Vic Fangio ultimately was hired for that job and was subsequently fired a month ago. You are aware, of course, that the Broncos have released a statement emphatically denying the allegations, giving specifics about what time the interview began, what time it ended, where it took place. They say they have notes. What is your reaction to that?
I deal in truth. That's my reaction. I deal in truth. Honesty, integrity is important to me, and hopefully we
That is critical race theory, a tenet of critical race theory. It's called the voice of color, and the voice of color is not to be questioned, or it's also called his story, kind of a play off of history. The club says, I'm not saying that he's wrong. Maybe they were out the night before, but the club says we have notes. Here's when it started. Here's the time. And what did he say? My truth is my truth. That is critical race theory.
There's a day where we find out the truth on that.
Once again, to be clear, there's no question in your mind about your recollection of this, regardless of what they say.
I'm going to go on here to explain where I'm going with this. People on Twitter play too much. Just had a couple jokes here. So here's the thing. John Elway has been known in the league to be, that's a rumor. I don't know. Allegedly, not from me. People think he's an alcoholic. So people on Twitter, they want to joke. Here's the other thing. Remember the Kente cloth 2020? This is John Elway, John Mara at their next press conference. Yeah, okay. You know what? I do wish Twitter had a algorithmic option where you could say, here's the topic. I want to see the gifs and the jokes. Just the gifs and the jokes for the topic. The John Elway denied it. He said if he appeared disheveled, it was because, so it looks like he might have been disheveled. I don't know. But he's like, if I was disheveled, it was because I had flown through the middle of the night, yada, yada, yada. Started with Colin Kaepernick. It started with Colin Kaepernick when he took that knee. That's when this all happened. That's when so this moment when Colin Kaepernick took that knee, that's when critical theory entered the NFL. And this is going to enter all walks of life, all businesses. That was the day, that was the time it entered the NFL. And his girlfriend, Nessa, was knee deep in critical theory way back then. I didn't even know what it was. Evolution of Colin Kaepernick. This Brian Flores thing is the evolution of it. Colin Kaepernick compared NFL tactics to slavery in the Netflix special. Why would he do that? Let's keep going. Well, you know what? He also got a lot of press off of it. All this. He gets paid to pretend to be a victim. That's why he's got all this ebony shine and got a lot of privilege for this victimhood. So that's the guy we treat as a victim, but the social justice warrior. And then now we have a black former NFL GM comparing him to Colin Kaepernick. So that's adding to the flames of the Colin Kaepernick stuff. Brian Flores compares the NFL to a plantation, just like Colin Kaepernick compared the NFL to slavery. They're right on the same way. This video here is going to be about now I'm going to transition to what did Colin Kaepernick and critical theory set the NFL up for? I didn't use the spoon analogy. She did.
The analogy that I use is using a cup of coffee. We've all had a cup of coffee. We stir that cup of coffee with a spoon. I liken the spoon to a racist, right? As you're stirring that coffee, it creates a current in the cup of coffee. And I liken that current to racism. Racists create the current of racism. If you take a white marshmallow and you drop it in the coffee.
I'm going to bring this back because when she says racist, I don't want you to think about a real like a real classical racist from the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s. I want you to think about me. You watching this channel right now. I want you to think about if you are pro freedom convoy, you are a racist. So the word racist is the same as misinformation. It's the same as white supremacy. It's the same as right wing, fringe. Don't think about racist in the classical form. That's not what she means.
The current in the cup of coffee. And I liken that current to racism. Racists create the current of racism. If you take a white marshmallow and you drop it in the coffee, what is that marshmallow going to do? It's going to go with that flow. It's going to continue in that current. For all those who say, I'm not racist, that's how I liken those people to that marshmallow floating in the current. You're not.
So if you're trying to be neutral, like Martin Luther King Jr., like judge people on the content of their character and say, everybody has their biases, but I'm not racist, I'm neutral, you are lumped in with the racists.
Not doing anything to stop the tides of racism. You're just really going with the flow of the racism. Right?
An anti-racist would do what?
Anti-racist would stop that, interrupt and disrupt the current of racism and send this dynamic in a different direction. An analogy that I use is.
So that's what if you listen to them, they will tell you what the goal is. All you have to do is listen to them. The goal is power. The spoon represents those who have power, who disagree with her. And her goal is to use critical theory to take control of the spoon. Now there's different layers to this. They never go after institutionalized power. They never go after Nancy Pelosi, put the kente cloth on. They don't go after Joe Biden, who's literally been associated with racist, has literally said things that you could call racist. All the little roaches on my leg, it was the craziest thing I've ever heard. Never explained what he meant. They never talk about that. Imagine if Joe Biden is so much for black women, why wouldn't he just resign and let a black woman, Kamala Harris, take over for president? There's never been a black woman president before. Maybe that's how the transition will happen. Who knows? But it's about power. The same thing that happens in the NFL is going to happen here. Ibram X. Kendi, famous critical race theory, same thing that's happening in the NFL. This is, I think, the next step for the NFL. Because even if they settle with this, they're going to have a problem. They have a problem that's going to be there no matter what. Ibram X. Kendi proposed to fix the original sin of racism. Americans should pass an anti-racist amendment of the Constitution to enshrine two guiding principles. Racial inequality is evidence of racist policy. So basically what he's saying is what Brian Flores is saying is evidence of racism. The NFL has 70% players who are black. There's not 70% coaches who are black. That is racism. He wants that in the Constitution as an amendment, and that different racial groups are equals. The amendment would make different racial groups equals. The amendment would make unconstitutional racial inequity over a certain threshold. So he's talking about numbers. So he's talking about, hey, it could be a constitutional amendment that any company over 100 employees or any company period, you have to have 50% diverse representation in the company or whatever it looks like. He's talking about hard numbers in the Constitution. Ideas by public. So he's flexing on public officials, as well as power over racist ideas by public officials. So what he's proposing is somebody who's over basically Congress. So it would establish and permanently fund the Department of Anti-Racism. He already got an acronym for it, DOA, comprised of formerly trained experts on racism, probably Ibram X. Kendi, Nicole Hannah-Jones, and others. They would be responsible for, get this, pre-clearing all local, state, and federal public policies. Did you hear what I said that he's proposing? This is a man that Joe Biden would never speak out against, would support completely. The DOA, Department of Anti-Racism, would be responsible for pre-clearing all local, state, and federal public policies to ensure they won't yield racial inequity. Pre-clear local. This is insane. Same thing that's going to happen to. So after the NFL gets through this whole Brian Flores thing, I wouldn't be surprised Jay-Z doesn't have. I don't think Jay-Z has a title. I don't know if it's Jay-Z or somebody else. They will be, because the NFL has to deflect. Because if Brian Flores gets a settlement, then there's going to be a lot of other black people saying, or diverse people saying, you did me wrong because of this. So they need to divert that to, hey, we've got a DOA in the NFL. And pretty soon you're going to have a DOA in every company. You're going to have one to handle the social credit score, the ESG. The DOA would be empowered with disciplinary tools. This is, are you listening to this? This is his proposal. Dead serious. I don't know if it will happen or not, but this is a dead serious proposal. The DOA, the Department of Anti-Racism, would be empowered with disciplinary tools. That's scary as hell. To wield over against policymakers and public officials who do not voluntarily change their racist policies and ideas. And you know what they call the Georgia laws. You know they would be over Marjorie Taylor Greene, any America First candidate. Will this happen? I don't know. But we got to make sure it doesn't. Eric Smith says they gain power through claiming powerlessness and using the institution as a third part to intervene. Brilliant. So the quid pro quo is Brian Flores and others. We support you, Joe. We support you, Kamala. We down with you. As long as you let us flex on these organizations and get power. There's that. I think there's an unspoken quid pro quo. So you say, why would people buy into this? I support Joe Biden and I feel like I get power. What's going to happen is you're going to have to find a way. That's why you have all these different made up terms and stuff coming up. And thank you for the super chat, Eric. Is because you're going to have to find yourself into that diverse crowd. You can't be just a white male anymore. You just can't be a white female anymore. You have to subscribe to the ideology. Craziness. Bomani Jones is, so you're going to see celebrities supporting this. It's going to be an all-out frontal attack, not just from people inside, but from celebrities.
What changes here, Bo? What has to change? What can change? What won't change?
White people. Like, I just don't know why people try to make this far more complex than it is. What's the problem? White people. Now, not every single individual white person. No. But in the macro and the aggregate, who are the ones that are making these decisions? White people. Who are the ones that won't change their decision making? White people. Who are the ones that only do anything in a different way when it comes to these matters at the threat of litigation? White people. So I need to ask y'all, what is it that can change? Y'all the ones that know these white people. Y'all the ones that be hanging out with these white people. Y'all the ones that know the ones that pretend to be such good people and then make all the same decisions as everybody else. So I don't have that answer there.
Oh, yeah. Just mask off. That's the Brian Flores. It's the Colin Kaepernick. Bomani Jones has a great show. I haven't listened to him in years. He probably went over to the woke side. Clearly, he went over to the woke side. It was funny that the NFL thought playing the Black National Anthem was going to cover this. Y'all got played. Y'all put the Black National. It's a beautiful song. Don't get me wrong. I love Lift Every Voice and Sing. But y'all thought you were going to play it before every game and that y'all were going to be good, right? No. You heard her talk about the spoon. Until they get control of the spoon, you're not going to be good. You bought into the Black Lives Matter. They went off, got mansions and cribs, and they want that spoon from you. They coming for you. NFL owners. It had nothing to do with race. It's using race to leverage it. This is my face. I'm going to end with this. While they are out here doing it, this is how I'm looking at them. Do you remember this scene from Star Wars? This is how I'm looking at them.
I don't think the system works.
How would you have it work?
We need a system where the politicians sit down and discuss the problem, agree what's in the best interest of all the people, and then do it.
That's exactly what we do. The trouble is that people don't always agree.
Well, then they should be made to.
By whom? Who's gonna make them?
I don't know. Someone.
You?
Of course not me.
But someone.
Someone wise.
Sounds an awful lot like a dictatorship to me.
Well, if it works.
So that's how she looked at him when he took the mask off. Let me know what you think. Those were the segments I had. I literally have a couple minutes here. I'll go through some comments if I can. Appreciate everybody. I feel better. I got that off my chest, man. Gosh, these people are annoying me, man. It's dangerous stuff. Yeah, absolutely. That's what she was talking about with the spoon. She said the spoon was racism. Like, we don't have a problem with the racism. We just want the spoon. They tell you, if you listen to them, they tell you what they want. Yep. You can yell Black pride, of course. Can you yell white pride? It doesn't pass the mustard. I understand there's a double standard. I don't believe in the double standard. Eric Smith, thank you for the super chat. He says, my deep religious spiritual side, not my rational thinking side, feels these people are demonic. It's a fair question to ask. I try to be guarded and not say that, but I'll ask the question. Where is this coming from? This is not coming from religion. That's for sure. This ain't coming from your belief in a higher power. That's for sure. So I appreciate everybody hanging out. If you go all the way up in the chat, I did create a Discord. You know what? I'm going to probably holler at Casual Goats or some other people on the channel, DM, and see what we want to do with it. Just create a channel to chat off of the channel here. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I appreciate it. I got to go walk the dog right now. Take care.